everybody! I'm Rebecca and welcome to Crafternoons. Today we're going to be making our own collaborative clay animals. So this will involve working together to make our own Play-Doh at home, and then we can use the Play-Doh to make our animals. This is the perfect project for adults and kids to do together. There's some aspects that will require adult supervision, like using a stove. But then there are also plenty of opportunities for the kids to get involved, whether that's mixing together the ingredients or when you're working together to make those forms out of the dough. Plus, working together is fun. A lot of artists will work in groups to get ideas from one another, challenge each other, gain inspiration from what someone else is doing. So collaboration is really an artistic practice. Speaking of collaboration, our project for today was inspired by an exhibition called Collaborative Animals, which is taking place at our very own Hopkins Hall Gallery. For the show, 10 artists are coming together to create a collage of animal photos and drawings, and they're also inviting guests to add to the collage or submit images to be added from home. The work not only explores the diversity in different animals, but also the diversity in the ways that people can depict animals. Since there is this giant collaborative aspect to the show, that means all these different ideas are coming together into one immersive experience. To learn more about this show, you can visit our website at uas.osu.edu/events/collaborative-animals. Now to jump into our project, we're going to get together everything we need to make our Play-Doh. The supplies we'll be using today are a saucepan or frying pan, just something that you can heat up your mixture in, a stove to provide that heat, and something to stir the mixture with. You'll also want some measurement tools on hand, and the measurements we're going to be using are a full cup, a half cup, and a tablespoon. Then for your actual Play-Doh ingredients, you're going to need water, vegetable oil, salt, cream of tartar, which I've heard is really good for making snickerdoodle cookies, so maybe you can use it for that after we make our Play-Doh. Then you'll also need food coloring and flour. Now that we have everything together, we're going to start mixing our ingredients in our saucepan. So the first ingredient we're going to add is 1 cup of water. Then we're going to add 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil. It's cool to watch how the oil and the water react to one another, because the oil won't actually mix in, it kind of stays on the top in these bubbles. Now we'll add a half cup of salt to the mixture. Then 1 tablespoon of the cream of tartar. For your food coloring, you can either choose to use the color straight from the bottle, or you could mix 2 colors together to get another color. If you want to try mixing 2 colors together, but aren't really sure how it's going to turn out, you can always do a test run in a separate bowl of water, mixing those 2 colors to see how they would look before you add it to your final mixture. You're going to add 15 drops of whichever color you select. So now that everything is mixed together, you can set the saucepan on the stove and turn it to medium heat. In this process, we're just waiting for the salt to dissolve into the liquid. We can stir it to make sure all the ingredients are coming together, so there might be some salt that gets stuck on the side or the bottom, and just periodically stirring that helps with the mixing process. Here's a closer view of what that salt will look like as I scrape it up to the side, and we're going to want this to be totally dissolved. As everything is heating up, it should start to bubble a little bit. However, if it comes to a full aggressive boil, you might want to remove it from the heat pad or turn down your heat a little bit. The bubbles might spray a bit, and to avoid it making a mess or possibly getting on you just because it can be hot, you can always put a lid on top of your pan. Soon you should see that all the salt is dissolved and you don't have those chunks in the liquid anymore. Then we'll remove the pan from the stove, turn off the heat, and let the liquid cool for a bit. Once the liquid is completely cooled down, we're going to mix in 1 cup of flour. If you add the flour in gradually, it'll make it easier to mix. It might look a little bit chunky and weird at first, but no worries, it's supposed to look this way. So just continuing to mix it will get it to a normal consistency. Once most of the flour is mixed in, it might be easier to take the dough out of your pan and actually knead it with your hands. I had a couple bits of flour that were difficult to mix in with the spoon, but by kneading the dough and kind of just pressing it into the counter, rolling it around, I was able to work out those pieces and fully mix my Play-Doh together. Once our Play-Doh is finished, we get to do what we've all been waiting for, to make our own animal. This dough will dry out if you leave it out for an extended amount of time. That's why I have mine stored in plastic bags. You'll want to keep this in mind as you're working on your animal. If you're happy with how the final animal looks and want to keep it exactly as it is, you can leave it out to dry overnight. Or if you want to be able to continue to move your animal around, even reuse the Play-Doh that you're using, you can store it in an airtight container, in a plastic bag, or in cling wrap. Next month I'm going to be teaching a lesson on stop motion, and a subset of that is claymation. So if you're interested in using your animal in your own short film, then make sure that you keep it in airtight storage. As you can see, I've been working with this dough, forming it into 2 rounded shapes with my hands. I decided to make a frog for my animal. However, you can choose whatever animal you feel most inspired to work on. You might even want to talk with the people you're working on the project with to see what animals they're doing. You can make animals that live in the same habitat or just entirely different animals. It's really up to you. So I'm going to demonstrate a technique called scoring, which is used a lot in clay work. And basically what you do is make lines that help attach 2 pieces of clay together. It makes these little divots that allows the clay to attach better. And I just used a fork. That's really a simple way to get those lines. You could do it with really any household item. So maybe you have scissors on hand. You could even use your fingernails, but it's just making those grid lines. You don't always necessarily need to use scoring because the Play-Doh is so sticky, it will stick to itself. You can see with these frog legs, I'm just sticking it directly on the dough, but maybe for some bigger pieces like that head and body connection, I would want to use this technique. So now I'm just working on the front legs of my frog, making that distinction between the leg and then the feet, attaching those to the front. Now I'm going to start working on some details on the head. So I'm going to make 2 round eyes, attach those to the top. Then I'm going to use my other color Play-Doh. I made blue, and I'm going to use those to make the actual pupils of the eyes. So another thing to be thinking about is how you can combine colors when you're making your animal. You also can use whatever tools you're kind of using to shape your clay. I'm using my fork again to add some imprints into the face of my frog. So I gave it a nose, gave it a mouth, and some details in the eyes. And there I have my finished frog. Here's some more examples for you to look at of animals made out of Play-Doh. The fun thing about using Play-Doh and being able to continue to rework it is that you can try making a ton of different animals. You could even try making a habitat for your animal. I hope you're enjoying the process of making your own collaborative clay animal and working together as groups of artists. Now that you have your Play-Doh, you can continue to use it to make whatever your mind can imagine. So thanks for joining me today, and hopefully I'll see you for our next Crafternoons.